Leonard Sumner at the Manitou Abbey 2019. You were nominated for a Juno in 2019 for Standing in the Light for Indigenous Music Album of the Year. Can you talk a little bit about putting together Standing in the Light and the process for that?
The process for my last album, Standing in the Light, was probably a 6-year process.
Wow.
From wanting to have all the songs. Because my albums, I feel like, have been an opportunity to tell stories. And, you know, everything from song selection for recording to the actual playlist of like what track order, track listing. You know, every little detail I kind of went over, and it was like a super long process. So the songwriting process, I had the album title for years before I actually had the songs ready for the album, and the title came from a book I read that Wab Canoe gave me called Standing in the Light, which was a book by Severt Youngbear, who was a powwow traditional singer in South Dakota. And he explained the concept of standing in the light as a songwriter, as a singer. People he used the example of people in the powwow community, that people at the center were referred to as people who were standing in the light, who knew a lot about what they were presenting their songs. They knew the stories of the song, they knew what they meant, they knew what time to sing them, they knew where they came from. All of those things were important in order. And then people on the outside of that circle were like, you know, like it's kind of concentric circles, a little bit. There was like 4 dimensions to it, and then people on the outside were standing in the dark, and you know, they didn't really have an idea. They were there at the same event, but they didn't really know why. They couldn't explain why, you know. So it's like kind of like almost like university degrees where you get your PhD at the end. You know, you got to get your master's before that. I feel like the process of learning music has been kind of like that for me. And then there was another thing about that was a governing process of selecting a leader in the Treaty 3 area. Apparently they called it Standing in the Light, where all the candidates would stand in front of everybody, and then the people would stand behind them, and that's how the leader was elected. It wasn't done with a closed, you know, hidden ballot or anything. It was done openly. So that to me spoke about transparency. And then of course myself as a musician standing in the light, I want my stories to be transparent, and I want them to reflect who I am, and they also hold me accountable to who I am as a person.
You had some excellent advice for younger artists starting up about just, you know, show up, be ready, do a good job, and be nice. I mean, that seems to be a good way to operate.
Yeah, that's basic. That works in any job field, pretty much. I think maybe even for prison guards, it probably works good. You know what I mean? But yeah, you know, you got to show up. You have to advocate for yourself as an independent artist. You know, you have to know what you're worth, and when you show up, you have to be worth it. And like a lot of times, you know, like I've never showed up for a gig and not been worth it. You know, whether they were paying me $50 or $5,000. You know, I've always showed up and done a good job, and I've always been good to people. And like, you know, all the extracurricular stuff that sometimes come with the music industry, that goes to the side until the job is done.